minute deficit. This morning, I want all of you to go back to the day you were saved. The day you were saved. Are you thinking about that right now? In your mind, think about you personally, the day you were saved. You doing that? Kind of grab that with your mind. That's the hour. Can you go back to the hour you were saved? Can you go back to that very hour when you came face to face with Jesus? I call that, for lack of a better word, the MOS, the moment of salvation. And unless you, where you're sitting right there this morning, reflect yourself as I talk, unless you reflect on your MOS, you're going to miss out this morning. So as you're sitting there and as I attempt to go through this devotion, think about that moment of salvation when you are face to face with Jesus. Okay? What I want to read this morning, I guess the point of my devotion is to remind us about that MOS, that we don't take credit for our salvation. We don't take credit for being a new creation and a new creature. Now, all of us know the verse, right? That we are a new creation. The old man is, and behold, the new man is here. That's not news, right? We all know that. That's kind of everybody knows that verse. But the question is, why are we a new creation? Well, I go back to what I just said. Because of Jesus. And it's so funny. You know the old Bill Gaither song, There's Something About That Name? Man, there's just something about saying that name. It's amazing. You could say Lord, you could say Christ, you could say God, you could say Son of God, but when you say the name
Jesus,
man, that's just something just comes over me. Something just happens. Listen to this verse. Now, the verse what I just mentioned, if anyone is in Christ, there's a new creation. That's in 2 Corinthians 5. But farther down in 21, it says this. He, meaning God, made the one who did not know sin to be sin for us, so that we, that's you and me, might become the righteousness of God in Him. You know, the lost world, and I'm not talking about that crappy Jurassic Park sequel. I'm talking about the lost world. The people out there in the world, they have a skewed view of the church, do they not? They think, and especially, let me tell you this, those of you with lost family members, you know this really well, because they look at you and they say, who do you think you are? What makes you so special? Because you look down on us and you go to church because you think you're something special. Well, here's my question to you. Are you better than them? Are you? Are you better than your lost neighbors? Are you better than your lost family members? Here's the analogy I use. The analogy I use is the Jesus boat. Okay? Let's say I'm in a huge body of water. Let's say the ocean. Okay? And your lost family member or your lost neighbor is in the water too. Both of you treading water. Just treading water. And here comes Jesus in his boat. He comes up to you and he says, you tired of treading water? And you're like, I'm exhausted. He says, come on, get in my boat. Come on, get in my boat. And what have we all collectively done? We got in the boat, right? What is the lost world doing? Still treading water. Still saying, I can do it on my own. I don't need you. Now, does that mean because we didn't save ourselves, right? We got in the boat. We were invited, both of us. We got in the boat. The world hasn't. Does that mean we're better than them? No. Well, we sure are better off, aren't we? And the other observation I have about the world out there is, why aren't we surprised that the heathens act like heathens? I mean, it's like my kids. You know, my little girl, those of you with kids, why Addie was telling me last night, because we're planning our vacation to the coast, she was informing me that she's going to swim out with the sharks, right? Oh. And I'm like, why am I arguing with the 4-year-old? Because she naturally has it in her mind what she's going to, I mean, that's what children do. That's what kids do. Kids hit, right? Little kids hit each other. What does the lost world do? Let me give you an example. On the other side of the county, right at the county line, the West End, y'all know the West End Grocery? Y'all know where that place is? He told me this morning he goes to the Orchard. What's his name, do you know?
Yeah, Jack.
Jack.
Jack Parker.
I don't know Jack.
Jackson, Jackson, my small.
Do what?
Jackson, my small.
And so I was at the West End Grocery on a Friday evening getting gas, payday, thank you, FA, getting gas, and I looked around, y'all, and there was this line of people. I was in the middle of the line. Some people in front of me, some behind me. Everybody had their 24-pack of beer. On a Friday night, everybody had their pack of beer. And y'all, okay, I'm saying, okay, maybe you're going to drink a couple and watch TV, but I just have a feeling they're going to drink that whole pack that evening, right? Doesn't matter if you have children there watching. Doesn't matter if your wife is asking you not to stop. I just had this hurt feeling that all these people were lining up on a Friday night to drink their misery away. And when I got up to the counter, I told Jack, I said, hey, you know what? Because he knows me, he knows I work at FA. He has our music playing behind the counter all the time. I said, you know what? I said, I didn't make up this quote, but it's true. I said, the world drinks to forget, but the church drinks to remember. That's the difference between those people that are drinking their misery away and us who have that moment of salvation. By the way, did you know that the Apostle Paul used the term Walking Dead before it was ever a comic book? Really? I've woken up the guys in the back. Jody's listen to this verse, Ephesians 2:1. You were dead in your sins in which you previously walked. Think about that. I mentioned a minute ago they're heathens. I'm not trying to be mean or judgmental, but they're literally walking dead. They're people walking around who are spiritually dead. So our lost neighbors and our relatives are spiritually dead and spiritually blind. So what about us? Where does that leave us? Well, folks, this morning we need to remember where we came from and who rescued us. Let me do this analogy. I want to ask the ladies about surgery. Any men in here undergone any major surgery? Raise your hand. Anybody? Jeff. Jeff Shamley, come up here. You had surgery.
Raise your hand again.
He raised it like this. The other Jeff was like, me! And Jeff was like, okay, so tell us about your surgery.
Oh, Bill. This man scares me.
He should.
Yes. No, it was one of the scariest things I've ever faced.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Was it heart surgery?
Yeah.
Was it difficult because when you got in there you didn't know what role you were going to play as far as the surgery team?
Well, I knew what my role was. My role was to do nothing. And what scared me was I thought about this a lot, you're in the prep room and they take everything from you. I mean, you're left with what you came into the world with. And they start putting dozens of needles in you, and you're thinking, I'm going to be put to sleep, and I don't know what's going to happen on the other side.
Okay,
And-
so what,
and
stop,
so-
I'm confused. So, when you had this surgery, what role did you play? I mean, here's the list, okay? Surgeon, assistant surgeon, cardiologist, which is the guy who probably told you don't eat that because this is a situation to be in. Surgical nurse, perfusionist. That's why are they putting perfume in a and, anesthesiologist and scrub tech. So of all those on the list, I mean, which one? Please tell me it wasn't a perfusionist because that sounds kind of funny.
Well, the anesthesiologist, I talked to him, and I wanted to make sure that
No, I mean,
I
but
didn't
you
wake
weren't
up
the
during
anesthesiologist.
middle of it. No.
And you weren't the scrub tech.
No, I didn't do anything.
I mean, you didn't lay there and say, "Hey, hand me that."
I just laid there.
You laid there.
I just laid there.
So what you're saying
And went to
is,
sleep.
so what you're saying is, you just kind of, you were unqualified to perform the surgery on yourself, correct?
Correct. All I did was pray.
And sit there and let somebody else who was qualified to perform that surgery on your heart.
And trust that they could do it.
How profound. Thank you, Chad.
Yep.
How profound that you realize in that moment just how weak you are and how you're putting your life in the hands of somebody else, even somebody with the title of perfusionist. Let me read some testimonies to y'all right quick. I'm wrapping up here. See if these, you still have your MOS? Still have your MOS. This is God's Not Dead book. It's not Newsboys. It's another book. This guy's Brant Redding. Ever heard of him? Me either. But he's from Canada. And he was an atheist. And at the University of Calgary, he enjoyed using his wit and his wisdom to talk other people out of their faith. As he says it right here. And it was easy. The second year, I had successfully talked a number of nice people out of their so-called faith. It was easy. No one had any substantial proof for their beliefs. And here's what happened to him. A turning point for me came after reading C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity and Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict. On a cold, minus 30-degree winter day, Fred, that's cold. That's candy right there. Sitting in my car, I took a step and out loud asked God, if you are real, if all this is true, make yourself real to me. The invisible became tangible immediately. Everything changed inwardly. The words of Pascal came true for me. Inside every man there is a God-shaped vacuum that nothing can fill except the Creator. I was a skeptic turned believer. There's your Canadian college student. Here's your Afghanistan Muslim. Her name was Miriam. I began to weep as I saw his hands and feet pierced on the cross. My eyes were opened to the revelation of the enormity of what Jesus has done. I started weeping afresh with this revelation of God's mercy. I felt as if I would explode with joy at the offering of this incredible gift. 70 days after Ramadan, we would make a sacrifice by killing a lamb. Every year, as the innocent lamb was taken to slaughter, I heard its terrified bleating and wept for the innocent animal. Now, I knew my sins could not be cleansed by an animal sacrifice, but only by the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus. That's your, so now we've got our Calgary student, our Afghanistan Muslim. This book Huge. Hugh Hewitt, love it. Searching for God in America. It was a PBS special. It's got everybody in here. It's got the head of, he's got Muslims. It's got the head of the LDS Church. But the amazing thing, in a book this thick, 500 pages long, we know the truth is really here on page 5 with this person's testimony. I felt absolutely dead inside. And I kind of thought I was just burned out from 4 years in the White House. I thought I was just tired. But that emptiness, that deadness inside persisted. This is March 1973. I walked into the office of a client and met Tom Phillips. He was a businessman, engineer, and president of the company at age 36. He was at peace. And this day he was so changed that about 15 minutes into the conversation, I said, Tom, what happened to you? You ever had any of your relatives or your friends that you ran with ask you, what happened to you? You're different. And Tom said, I have accepted Jesus Christ and committed my life to Him. I almost fell off the chair. Here was a businessman engineer talking about Jesus Christ as if he knew Him. That was March. This person comes back in August and he says, Tom, you've got to tell me what happened to you. Here's what happened to Tom. By the way, the corporation is Raytheon, which back in the 70s is huge. And this is the CEO of Raytheon. He was in a hotel in New York City, and there was a Billy Graham crusade at Madison Square Garden. He sat up in the upper deck, and that night, the head of the largest corporation in New England heard the gospel that Jesus Christ is fully God, fully man, wants to live in our lives, and is knocking at the door of our lives. He told me this beautiful story, and he wanted to pray with me. And this person said, no. But he did this. He made me listen to a chapter out of a book written by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. And that night, Tom Phillips read the chapter called The Great Sin, Pride. And as he read it, it was like my whole life parading before my eyes. I realized that Lewis had written that chapter for me. I thought I had done all these things with government, power, and influence because I was idealistic. Actually, I was trying to show how good I was, and it was like a torpedo hitting me mid-ship. This person took that book and promised Tom Phillips he would read it. I said goodnight to Tom and went out to the driveway and got into my automobile, but I couldn't drive it out of the driveway because I was crying too hard. So there's your Canadian student, your Afghanistan Muslim, and Chuck Colson's testimony. So let me get to the shoe store analogy, okay? Everybody got their shoes? Pick up your shoes, kind of hold them in your lap right there. Think about this. When you go to the shoe store, we're talking tennis shoes, right? You walk in with your old tennis shoes because you've recognized that, hey, these are not looking too hot, right? I need to get some new tennis shoes. So you walk in with your old tennis shoes and you look around and you find some new tennis shoes. With me so far, right? What happens, you have your new tennis shoes, you go up to the counter, and the lady asks you, what does she ask you about your new shoes? Anybody remember? Do you want to
Wear them home.
wear them home? Do you want to wear them out of the store? So you're sitting there with your old shoes and your new shoes, and suddenly you weren't thinking about this when you walked in. But those old shoes look pretty bad. don't they? Compared to the beautiful, clean shoes that you have, you're actually embarrassed. You're actually ashamed at the shoes I walked into because you're like, they looked good. Well, I knew I needed shoes, but I didn't know that shoes could be so clean. And I didn't know that my shoes were so terrible. And so you happily say, yes, I think I'll wear those new shoes out of the store. Isn't that what we do with Jesus? We recognize how messy we are, how dirty we are, how unclean we are. And then we gladly say, I'll take your righteousness and put it on me. Here's another quote I didn't come up with. God did not come to the earth to make bad people good. He came to make dead people live. And if you have him in here, you are alive because of his spirit, because of what he has done, not because of what you did, not because you go to church, not because you try not to say bad words in traffic, not because you give an offering, not because you try to balance the good with the bad, because you surrendered to him and you said, in Christ alone will I trust. If you climbed in his boat, if you let him operate on your heart, if you let him exchange your filth and shame for his righteousness, then Ben, go ahead and turn out the lights and start that song. I couldn't do this without a song this morning. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty or anything. I'm not trying to stir your emotions. I just wanted to give you a chance to thank him for what he did for you. If you want to stand up and sing.